All right, we're back. Got 4 turnbuckles built, looking all pretty and shiny. Pretty stoked on this. Since the front end's sitting here, we can go ahead and start with the front end. So, with this 2.1, we get a new goofy looking rod end, which is actually a great design. I'm gonna go ahead, pop all, just use all the stock, the centered balls that it comes with. It's pretty sweet. Tekno cars come with all these good aluminum, hard anodized balls. Work really well, last a long time. Alright, so and these I wonder if I used the wrong screws. Might have put the wrong screws in. I think normally they're not quite that long. I have to double check. Maybe the fronts don't use a 20. Maybe they use like an 18. I think I put a little bit long. Let's see, 1529? No, a 20. Yeah, those were the right screws. Oh. I think I accidentally put the 22s in there. Darn it. So, swap out these screws here for the sway bars. Which, you know, that happens. We all make mistakes every once in a while. I kind of thought they were long when I was putting them in. So normally, when you just slide them in, they're kind of like flush with the outside of the arm, and they were sticking out some, so kind of thought maybe they were long. Didn't hurt anything. Just wasted about 30 seconds of my life, which probably not that big of a deal. Alright, let's see what the kit recommended position. 2 position on the front leak, which would be inside row, middle hole. That's where I'm putting mine. So, go ahead and do that. Let's see what it says. A 34, they're both 34s, which are 22. That's what I got kind of confused, but I think that's a rear. Since I dumped all my screws out together, that's what happened. I got all my screws mixed up, which happens. Not a big deal. Alright, so put my screw in, and then we have Tekno, we have these steel washers. You put a steel washer on first, and then you put your turnbuckle on. You want to make sure you have these going the correct direction, which this is how it will set on the car, with it lower, then raising up to go onto the caster block. and I run my marking on my turnbuckle to the left side of the car. So we do that, and then I do an extra steel washer, and then the nut. That's just kind of how I do it. Since it's a new build, I'll go ahead, put a little thread lock on, or a little Loctite, blue Loctite. I don't really think blue Loctite, or Loctite in general, really does a whole lot on these screws. I find these inner camber link screws kind of can wiggle themselves loose, and before I race, I always glue mine on, so that's what I recommend doing. Alright, so I go screw through, washer, ball, washer, flange nut. I'll do the same thing on the outside. Washer, ball, washer, a little bit of blue Loctite, flange nut. You want to make sure you use a flange nut so that the rod end won't pop out over that ball and cause you a DNF, like what happened to me 1 year leading P&B. That was a bummer. Can just kind of tell that my camber is a little off, so tighten that up. And I'm gonna be running out of steel washers. I use a bunch of these steel washers. The washers are pretty sweet, so I would recommend, if you are running Tekno cars, order yourself up some of these washers for spares, because they're awesome to use. I feel like when you do a washer on both sides of the aluminum balls, that the kind of the ends of the balls don't get so distorted and messed up from crashing and just driving and stuff. Just the pressure on those links, since it's not like an upper front arm, it's just like a camber link setup. The pressure on those links is really, really high. So if you don't run these steel washers on both sides of the balls, I feel like the balls get pretty messed up and kind of bent pretty easily. If you bend the screw really bad, you're probably still going to tweak the ball. But I have found that they last a little longer, work a little better if you do a steel washer on both sides. Good to have spares of these balls handy, just because, and of the screws, just because sometimes a really hard crash, really hard hit on the front end, you can bend these camber link screws and tweak the balls. Boom, turnbuckles on, and super good. I'm gonna run out of steel washers already, so all right, now let's go to the rear end. Ah, I see, that's where these silver washers came in, and why they did a 25 screw. I was wondering why it was a 25 screw and not a 22 like is normal. And that answer is because we space out the link on the rear tower. So the new kit, they have you space it out with a a little silver washer, which is pretty cool. I do mine a little bit different, and so I will be building mine how I do mine. So on the outside, I use the centered aluminum ball. On the inside, I use the offset ball, if you can see that. And so then obviously I put the offset towards the inside, against the tower to space it off of the tower some. So I'll use my normal 22 screw. And let's see, what position does it? It says full inside down, which would be position 3. I don't run that position. If you're going off of the numbers on here, I would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would be position 6, which is middle row, one from the bottom. Where's my steel washers? And what I do here, so normally you do the one washer on each side of the ball, and I will put 3 washers on, and then do my link, and then 1 washer, a little bit of Loctite, and the flange nut. And you can fit all that on with the 22 screw still. Not have a bunch bulging out there. But, so yeah, as you can see, just use that to space it off the tower some. Should be very similar to what the kit is saying to use, but I use a different ball just because I'm kind of OCD with how I want everything to go together and look and work and stuff. So I use offset ball. It works good instead of a spacer. Sorry, I'm looking for a screw for here. A 22 for the hub. Like I said, I am bottom row, 3 out. A 30, 34. Oh, it actually still says to run the 22 on the inside. I'm sorry, I was reading this wrong. It says to use a 25 here on the outside and run a flange nut on the outside here. But I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not digging that. It's too much thread sticking out for me. So I'm going to revert back to the 22, which is what I normally use. And I will save those flange nuts and just use a non-flange nut. I don't really feel like you need a flange nut here on the outside. Not gonna really hurt you either way, I don't think. But like I said, I'm picky with certain things, certain things with my cars. I don't like excess thread sticking out. It just kind of bothers me. So, all right. Offset ball on the inside. Make sure my threads are all going the same way. I do my threads where if I'm behind the car, it's forward. Well, anyway, it's forward to tighten up the turnbuckles. I like them matching. Some people do opposite, but I don't know. To me, that's super confusing. So I do all mine matching, same direction. So screw in 3 steel spacers. Got 1 on there. Put 2 more. Have to order me up some new steel spacers. 1 more. So I got steel on both sides of the aluminum washer. Little bit of Loctite. And flange nut. Tighten that down good and tight. Make sure my drive shaft is in. Bottom. Nope, I'm a little crooked in there. My ball's kind of, oh, there we go. It's like crooked and kind of wedged in there for some reason. Thing's just wanting to fight me. Oh, there we go. Then I use the 22 on the outside with a non-flange nut. Tighten that down. Looks fairly close. Feels good. Boom. Turnbuckles are on the rear end. Just like that. We got a couple clips. Alright guys, we're back. We got the front and rear clip done. Gonna start working on the steering now. I went ahead, built my 2 steering links. So yeah, opened up some more bags. I think I've opened up through bag K, I believe. So just kind of spreading my screws out over here, my parts. But we're gonna work on the servo saver now. Get this going. Trim away a little bit of the tree. I like to compress the spring just a little bit. I use some pliers, kind of halfway compress it, use my fingers some. Compress it a little bit. Already installed the little O-ring that goes inside the servo saver nut, and Tekno is pretty awesome. You can fit the wheel wrench on the servo saver nut, which is funny because Kyosho, we always put a harder servo saver spring in, and it was so hard to do. And I emailed them and told them for probably 5 years to redesign their servo saver nut so that you can put your wheel wrench on it, because that would be genius. Not sure if they did for the NP10 or not. I have no idea. But Tekno already had this like this and it's genius. So I tighten mine all the way down, back it off a half turn. So not really using much of a servo saver. It's pretty much clamped all the way down. But servos are so good nowadays, it's not really a big deal. Especially if you're using the JTP Nitro Pro CT2. Ain't got nothing to worry about there. Put some of these bearings in. Go ahead, put these little bearings here on the ends for the Ackerman bar or plate or whatever you would like to call that. So with the 2.0, it was told to build it like with that going to the back, the kind of points going to the back. On this 2.1, it says to run those to the front, because that's pretty much what we did with the 2.0 car. So all of our setups would have, you know, kind of had the Ackerman bar turned around. So we'll go ahead and just build it like that right from the get-go here. I will use blue Loctite on these button head screws. Get it in your fingers a little bit so you don't make a big mess. You put the nut through the servo saver part first, then run the screw through the top. I believe it's 8 mil. Get this good and tight. And you don't want to be too sloppy with your Loctite and make a big mess. So be nice and clean with your Loctite. Make sure it's all in the threads. This is something that you're gonna kind of put on one time and forget about it. So you want to make sure it's good and tight. But if you're sloppy with your Loctite and it's just splattered all over the side, you might get some Loctite in your bearings, which wouldn't be that awesome. Boom, just like that, super free, working good. So I say with that, the way I kind of like to do my car, I already put one side guard on the chassis. I am going to start putting the clips on. It's just kind of the way I like to do it. So, gonna find the right screws. Let's see. I think that's it. Yep. Get my blue Loctite. Rub it through a little bit, making sure it's just getting on the threads. And then, as you can see, our steering posts key in. So you want to make sure that you have them keyed in there. Get your screws. I just do blue Loctite on these. You want to make sure you get them really tight though. Some people kind of take those screws in and out a bunch to take their front clip on and off. The way I like to do mine, I don't. So I try to leave those on. And then put the steering on like so. And then we'll just go ahead, bolt the front clip on. Can't believe the front clip is already going on. Got the longer screws in the front. Not going to run them all the way in. I like to get all 4 screws in first before I really crank down. So I'll put the screws in the back here. That one's kind of tight first time going in. My clutch isn't quite strong enough. Gonna have to manhandle these ones. Tekno's revised our material on the bulkheads a little bit since the original 2.0 came out, just to help with kind of the spreading of the bulkhead under intense braking. That's normally what causes gears to skip. Issues with ring and pinion, stuff like that, which we didn't have really at all with the 2.0 buggy. When we started testing the truggy, little bit here and there if you weren't shimming your diffs well. So they wanted them to be really sturdy. Even if you do a terrible job shimming your diffs, you still shouldn't have any issues. So material's a little bit harder, a little bit stiffer. And then, you know, we have the other 2 little screws there that really help as well. So we'll go ahead, swap over. I believe these are 3x12s here. Put these bad boys in. All right, that stuff went together pretty solid. I'm actually gonna pop this back up because I run a 30-gram brass weight. Forgot to put that in first, so I'll go ahead, put that in now. Need to find me a screw to use. Let's see. Need like a 3x10 here. My screw box is kind of a mess. Of course, I don't think. Need like a, even a smaller, like a 3x8 or something like that. 3x10, a 43. I have to find me a screw. Screw is located. Put some Loctite. Definitely Loctite these brass weights if you use them. You don't want them things falling out, bouncing around, getting caught up in your steering linkage and whatnot. Wouldn't be super cool. So boom, go ahead. Now we can put steering back on, get all the bearings lined back up. Oh yeah, there we go, there we go. Alright. Let's check out the manual, see what it says here. Not sure where it has the steering links. Oh, there we go. So we use the 3x20. The steering link screws. Let's see where all my screws are at. Aha! There's the missing ones. Making sure it's still recording. I haven't filled my phone all the way up. That would not be cool to have to take my car back apart to film some more. So try not letting that happen. Alright. And actually, just like the manual says, you do the line on the turnbuckles always to the left of the car. That's how I do mine as well. So good on ya, Tekno crew. They know what's up. We'll really see if they know what's up when we get to the shocks to see if you put the paint on the top or the bottom. That's where it's really gonna matter. So hopefully they have it right and they do the paint at the bottom. We'll see. So far, gotta give the Tekno crew an A+ on these manuals. They're pretty next level. Alright, so we'll do Ackerman side first. I run 3 washers on mine. Let's see, kit says 4. I do 3 on the inside, so count up 3. Middle location, little dab, some Loctite, and a non-flange nut. My workbench is starting to get sloppy. I'm getting too many items out there. And oh, duh, I screwed up. It's because I was looking at the manual. So I do a washer first, just so that ball can't pop off. I was like, man, something's not seeming right. So I do a washer first, just to give me some more security, because I am all 4 finishing races. So I go washer, ball, 3 washers, through the Ackerman plate. I already put a little Loctite on this. Nut. Next side. I really should have a car stand here. Now that I got my chassis. Make sure turnbuckles are the right direction. The notch is going the right way. Go washer, ball, 3 washers, plate, Loctite, non-flange nut. Boom. Looking good. Grab my 2.5 and my 5.5. Tighten that down. Should put the top on this thing so my bearings will stop bouncing around, 'cause that's annoying. Tighten this other side. Oh yeah. Man, I can't wait to run this thing. Yeah, let's go ahead and just put this thing on. Make sure you get your body mount going the right way so that it's flat. I'm gonna guess that there's gonna be an odd amount of these screws, which there is. Those are for the center. So one of these guys is for the body mount. Put this guy in. And then let's see. I want to see what it says for that center screw. 44. It's at 12. So it's 10s on the sides. And then it's gonna be 10 on the front also. So Loctite on the 2 side 10s. Put those guys in first. Use my fingers a little bit to not make a mess with the Loctite. Get my 2.5 here, put these others in. I know you heard my chuck there, but I don't think I quite went, I think it chucked, or my clutch, because it got a little tight. Didn't want to run these all the way down. Alright, boom. Thing's looking good. Now we just gotta do the outside of the steering link. Says another 20, which I got the 20s here. So for this, you don't really need a washer on the back side, but I like to, just because you're going into the carbon fiber. So I go washer through. I run 2 shims on the outside. Let's see what the kit calls for. Kit calls for 2 shims. Oh, and it says put a washer on first as well. So there you go. But it does not do a flange nut, which I think is kind of crazy. So I go washer through the plate, 2 washers, ball, another washer. I'll steal these flange nuts because I didn't use them somewhere else. I'll put a flange nut here. You want to use, for sure, a washer if you use a non-flange nut, but I would recommend a flange nut just so that that ball won't pop out either. Next side, washer through the steering plate there. 2 more washers, ball, washer, little bit of Loctite, and flange nut. It's always good to order hardware, just to have extra hardware, you know, some extra nuts, washers, screws, things like that, especially when you're building a new kit, just in case, you know, if there's things kind of like that where, you know, you need a couple extra washers, you need a different nut, if, you know, you think you need a flange nut instead of a non-flange nut, just things like that. Steering links were way too long. I'm gonna tighten them up so that my front end doesn't look completely broken as I'm building it. I'll measure these, make sure they're the same length as we get closer. Looking pretty good though right there. Man, we're making some good progress. Things looking sharp. I'm stoked. I'm gonna grab me a car stand now. Try not to snag it myself. All right, car stand. Boom. Now, we'll have to go back a little bit in the manual because I skipped the center diff earlier in the build because it was pretty early on. So we'll step back in time. New center diff mount, which is super sweet on the 2.1. Has some really good changes made. One change, keys in. Sorry, I'm standing up, can't see my head. I normally wrench standing up. I kind of like standing up while I'm wrenching. So I guess I could have done the video like that, but I did it sitting down, so I guess I should sit down. Oh, first thing we gotta do. Oh, that's what those little flats are. Gotta put the disc brake guides in, which are always handy. Try not working behind my car too much here. Make sure this thing's still recording. So, screwing the disc brake guides in. Certain cars, I say don't use the disc brake guides because they kind of cause more binding. These cars, I think the disc guides are a good thing. They help kind of keep the brake disc lined up, and yeah, they don't cause any binding or anything like that. So we'll definitely run them. All right, pop that rear on. Get my 4 bolts ready to go, or screws. If you're a car guy, you might say bolts. If you're an RC guy, you might say screws. Man, that was tough too. Darn clutch is kicking in early. Some of these harder materials, you could probably put a little bit of grease on the screws the first time in if you really wanted to. I normally don't do that. Wouldn't say it's bad if you did. I just don't do that. I think they did the harder material for this center diff too, just to help with flex. Everything moves a lot in these cars. These cars take a crazy amount of abuse. Servos, everything are so darn strong these days, under braking and everything too. Yeah, just a lot of flex goes through these center diffs. So that's kind of why they keyed it in. I think did a little change to the material to kind of match what they did to the front and rear bulkheads at a previous revision for like the NT, ET-NTs, kind of when those got changed. So yeah, now it's about time to slap in the old center diff with some brand new brake discs here. Let's get some motor spray. They'll have some yucky stuff on them, just some machine oil and stuff, kind of like a lot of the parts did. Definitely want to get that stuff off. Don't want it in the brake pads. Get those nice and cleaned off. Man, this thing's going to be looking like a car here shortly. Put the front drive shaft in. Boom. Another revision to the 2.1 is getting rid of the double bearing center diff. Was a really cool design, innovative design to, you know, try something different, try to help with some, you know, keeping the heat down and stuff, but just didn't really work. So I think it, you know, was a good decision to go back to just the 8x16 standard bearing in the center. Kind of locks everything in a little tighter. Sometimes we had that center diff would just kind of move side to side with those bigger bearings, and just I think it just kind of, you know, caused a little bit of issues here and there. Nothing too crazy. So now we're gonna go to putting the brake pads on. What I kind of do is just one side with the spring in the middle there. Key here is you want these screws really good and straight when you go to start putting them in, so that your brakes work properly. So take your time here, don't rush it. Make sure they're threading in really good and straight in all directions. Kind of do them evenly, going one side, back to the other side, just to make sure you're not tweaking on anything. Then when you're getting close, you kind of have to pull the inside pad out over that lip, so then you can tighten it all the way down to the collar. And you just tighten it down till it's good and snug. Definitely don't strip that out. Make sure that's clear to the collar, then all the way down till it's good and snug. Make sure that your pad, you can use your fingertip, move it, everything's moving smooth, snapping back into place. Move on to the other side here. I think it's dinner time. Go ahead, do this last one. Then we'll have to jump back in it. Again, make sure these things are going in good and straight. Not running one side all the way in, leaving the other side out. Just, you don't want to tweak these holes at all, tweak any of these brake parts. Braking is a super important part of your car's handling and of your racing. So you definitely want this part to be done right. Boom. Those are done. We'll join back in a little bit.